Ole Miss will blast the South Carolina Gamecocks. We have the answer key before Saturday's test.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's show, we're going to start by breaking down our favorite prop bets with Ole Miss versus South Carolina so we can get to our official game picks. That's coming up in the third segment. I know I have my eye on Kewan Lacy. This could be the matchup where he finally explodes on the scene. Next, we're going to talk about why the future isn't something that Ole Miss has to wait for. It's already in Oxford. Worrying about hypothetical coaching searches in the middle of the season that you've been waiting for all of your life, that doesn't make too much sense. But first, we will dive into why Ole Miss will take down the South Carolina Gamecocks and move to 8-1. The Rebels are 1 4-2 away from a 9-0 or 8-0 start to the season, and they're ready to close it out strong. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like Ole Miss's players, they sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned for later in the highlights for this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. This is a game that Ole Miss should win. Ole Miss is favored by 12.5 points, although they lost 2 games last season that they were favored by double digits, including that game against Kentucky. We talked about that yesterday with Chris Gordy in the crossover. But it's not a sure thing that Ole Miss is going to win the game. Ole Miss has to win the game. If Ole Miss plays their A game, and South Carolina plays their A game, Ole Miss is going to win the game. The only way that South Carolina can win this game is if Ole Miss helps them out. Turnovers, weird going for it, all the analytics stuff makes an appearance in the game. That is South Carolina's only way that they can win this game. So why am I so sure that Ole Miss is going to come out and not pull a Kentucky, that they're not going to pull a Florida from a year ago? Well, it's pretty simple. It's what is at stake for this team. This Ole Miss football team, they smell blood in the water for what a special season could be this year. Ole Miss, as a roster, knows in the locker room that if they lock in for 4 weeks and they don't have letdowns and things like that, they are going to host the biggest game in Mississippi college football history. Honestly, the biggest football game in Mississippi history, if Ole Miss handles business against teams that they should handle business against. This Ole Miss football team is keenly aware of what is at their feet. And they also have a quarterback that I think they have an upgrade over last year. Now, I'm not talking about talent-wise because Trinidad is not a first-round quarterback. Jaxson Dart is a first-round quarterback. He is fantastic. But in this particular situation, you would rather have Trinidad Chambliss over Jaxson Dart as the quarterback in your system. And that is because this is the third year that Trinidad Chambliss has gone through this. He understands a playoff run. He understands how to handle the playoffs when he gets there. This is an old hat to him. Jaxson Dart was trying to figure out a way to get Ole Miss into the playoffs, something that he had never seen before. He just tried his best for that to happen. Trinidad Chambliss has seen it in action over the last couple of years at Ferris State, including a national championship over the last couple of years. Trinidad Chambliss kind of can get into that locker room and say, hey, this is what we need to do. This is where I see weak points. This is where I see strengths. Trinidad Chambliss can be the Ole Miss player that keeps everything on the rails. And third of all, this is a weird game because South Carolina is the worst team in the Southeastern Conference in running the football, and they're pretty bad at stopping the run. This is a game that Kewan Lacy should have a monster game against a defense that's been pretty poor against good running teams. They gave up north of 300 yards against Missouri in a game that they actually played pretty well throwing the ball. Sellers was on that night. They just couldn't run it, and they couldn't stop Missouri from running it. And they were in the game in the fourth quarter. Ole Miss is going to use those three things, and that is why that Ole Miss is going to defeat the South Carolina Gamecocks. It's pretty simple. There's other stuff, tackle LaNorris Sellers. You contain him. Don't let him use his legs. Ole Miss last year in Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia did a good job of containing LaNorris Sellers, but that was before LaNorris Sellers was kind of LaNorris Sellers, But you could have played 8 quarters that day, and South Carolina wasn't going to score a touchdown on that Ole Miss defense. So this Ole Miss defense, they need to get Sellers to the ground. They need to contain him, and they need to take away his legs, because when you take away his legs, South Carolina has proven that they can't necessarily beat you. They could hit a big pass to Nick Harbor or somebody else in the game, but I don't think this season, I might have to check the stats, and this could be wrong, but I'm not sure this year that they've had a game where they've gone over 350 yards of total offense. And that's weird considering they threw for like 320 in Columbia, Missouri, but they were like the negative yards rushing in that game. Ole Miss defensively, they have their work kind of cut out for them because there are a couple of players for South Carolina that can make you hurt. They genuinely can make you hurt. And Nick Harbor at wide receiver, he's basically like a DK Metcalf clone, as a guy with track speed that's like 240 pounds. He scored a touchdown against the Alabama Crimson Tide last week. But as long as Ole Miss can take away the running game in this game, and that includes Sellers, that includes the backfield, Ole Miss is going to be pretty fine, because if they can't run the ball, Pete Golding can do the drop 8 thing. And South Carolina does not necessarily have the weapons to take advantage of that. They will probably throw you the ball once or twice, and as long as you keep LaNorris Sellers from being able to run the football, you're probably going to be okay. Now, Shane Beamer, he's obsessed with special teams, just like his dad, Frank Beamer, was. The whole Beamer ball stuff, it was all involving a special teams touchdown. One of the better players on South Carolina's team is their punt returner. You either need to make sure you kick the ball high enough to where it's fair caught every time, or you kick the ball out of bounds. Oscar Bird has done a really good job punting the ball this season, especially directionally, and pinning players to the sideline all the time. That is an avenue for South Carolina to get a cheapy points. A fake punt is an avenue to get a cheapy drive put together. It will be important to try and get South Carolina in 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9. You want 2nd and long against this South Carolina offense, because then you can turn loose Suntan Perkins and Prince Will Amon-Mielen and that defensive line that, even though they're a tick below what they were a year ago, they proved against Oklahoma they can still get after teams, especially if you're having problems from the offensive line. And right now, South Carolina is. They got rolled pretty good against Oklahoma in Williams-Brice Stadium, and you just saw the Oklahoma team and what that matters. So handle LaNorris Sellers. Do not let him get going, and make sure they don't run the ball from the running back position, and you're likely going to win this game. It's probably as simple as that. So we'll see exactly how that goes for Ole Miss in the game. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, honestly. Next year is finally here for Ole Miss. This is what Lane Kiffin has been building toward, brick by brick, transfer by transfer, recruit by recruit. Now it's time for the fans and everybody to do their part. Block out all the noise on this coaching search thing, whether he goes or not, what the national narrative is, that doesn't affect this year. The players are locked in on what's directly in front of them, if Daquan Wright's interview with me early in the week is any indication. Because listen, what is at your fingertips isn't just another big Saturday. It's literally the biggest game potentially in Mississippi football history if you handle business in November. I always talk about remember November. So we'll talk about how Ole Miss got here and what comes next right after this. You know, this episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing time, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, they keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward for me was Winnie Watkins making big catch after big catch en route to an SEC Freshman of the Week honors against Oklahoma, putting Ole Miss in prime position to close out strong. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning, and just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to, and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but helps keep all of this free. Locked On's getting ready to change the game yet again, all in the name of having fun following your team. It's all coming in December. We'll tell you more whenever we have the information. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college and pro, is ready for you. So I did a show a little bit earlier in the week about November to remember and what this means and everything that is at the fingertips of this Ole Miss football team. You have a game coming up against 4 different opponents, 3 of them at home that you're going to be 10-point favorites against in all of them. So that is the path that we see before it all starts. Are there games that can be lost? Yes. I'm not saying it's guaranteed that Ole Miss can win the game. But if Ole Miss wins all 4 of those games, they're going to go 11-1 and host a playoff game at the absolute minimum in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium come December 19th. Likely against whoever the G5 team is. I don't think that Ole Miss fans need to worry about a coaching search right now at all. I don't think Lane's leaving, but if he were, so be it. You just put out a public offer that you're going to offer $14 million and you're going to be able to hire whoever you want to because this program is pretty set up right now to click. But I don't think that coaching search needs to take away from the season that Ole Miss fans have been waiting for the entirety of their lives. The season to where, hey, if you just give it all for 30 days, all of your dreams are in position to come true. Every one of them. So when you look at all of this noise, LSU, although LSU kind of peed in their cornflakes yesterday with the governor being so heavily involved in this search, Florida doing Florida things as well, but none of them seem to know exactly what's going on. And Ole Miss is in a really good, really powerful position. And I don't think anybody actually knows what's going on, but that's for the future, okay? Ole Miss over the next 30 to 60 days, if you lock in for 2 months, that's it, 2 months, that's boot camp, 2 months. Lock in for that. All of your dreams are in position to come true. You have the players, you have the talent. Shane Beamer in his Wednesday teleconference was asking another coach that played Ole Miss about Ole Miss, and that coach said this team is better than the team in 2024. They're better. They're absolutely better. It might look a little different, but Ole Miss has a better team in 2025. Think about that for a second. Enjoy the next 30 to 60 days. Recognize that every bargain that you made in 1987 when Ole Miss was winning 4 games, or in 1988 when Ole Miss was winning 5 games, when Mark Young was running around after an Independence Bowl victory against Texas Tech in 86, all of those bargains that you made at that point, they're available to come true this year. Now, I realize there's going to be fans that are just happy to be unhappy. They want to be unhappy and underserved. They're the type of people that you could hand them $10,000 in a paper bag and they'd complain about the paper bag. That's going, I get that. But they don't control how you feel about this. The national narrative does not control how you feel about this. The fact that Lane Kiffin can go on a show with Ole Miss in a position to get the 5 seed, roughly somewhere around there in the college football playoff, if they went out as if chalk happens, and every question to Lane Kiffin is about jobs. That's ridiculous. Again, in the Pat McAfee show, they even brought Trinidad Chambliss in there just so that there'd be a little attention paid to this football team. I'm telling you, the national media hates Ole Miss. They do, because Ole Miss doesn't generate the clicks of these other places. But enjoy the next month. Do everything you want to do. This is what you made your bargains for back in 1988. This is what you were talking about in 1981 after John Forcade left and you didn't know what was going to happen with Steve Sloan as the head coach. This is a massive, massive year, and it all starts with South Carolina tomorrow. This is like the first play in a 2-minute drive scenario. You need something to have a drive starter. You need a screen pass. You need a draw, something that gains 15 yards and gets everything going. That's what the South Carolina game is. The atmosphere is going to be absolutely electric, or at least it should. The players are going to be jived up. The game is at nighttime, so that means it's going to be amped up just a little bit more. Lane Kiffin is completely locked in. Anybody that thinks he's even thinking about a coaching carousel thing isn't aware of what's going on. We are still way down the road for anything like that happening. So lock in on this game, have fun on this game, and realize exactly what this game means. And the players to watch in this game, you have Trinidad Chambliss, obviously, because he's the quarterback. He's going to be the player to watch each and every single game. But the other two players, and coincidentally, this is the same list that I put out last Friday on the Why Ole Miss Win show. Suntan Perkins is going to be asked to spy LaNorris Sellers. And Ole Miss has gone against mobile quarterbacks enough to where they're probably pretty comfortable against them now. This isn't Taylor Green just running around to where nobody can make a play. This is a defense that is adjusted to the point where, Jake Retzlaff at Tulane, he got loose one time. John Mateer had like one 15-yard run in the game. And Garrett Nussmeier, they took him apart. Prince Will Amonmi Ellens got back fully healthy. The two ends, their vice that they're putting on mobile quarterbacks and playing contain, it's pretty impressive to see. But Sellers, he is the best in the conference of taking a dead play and keeping it alive, essentially. Reanimating a play, because he can break a tackle. You think you have a sack. He has uncanny balance. His contact balance is off the chart. And then he can make a big play, and all of a sudden they get a little juice to them. So it's going to be imperative for Ole Miss in this game to kind of front run. And I think you can do that by Kewan Lacy. Kewan Lacy is one of the leaders in the country in forced tackles missed, and he is very good at pass protection. He's going to be big with Dylan Stewart. And, of course, running the football. He's got 12 or 14 touchdowns or something like that at this point already. I mean, we're going to start talking about the touchdown record pretty quickly. And he actually broke one against the Oklahoma Sooners for a touchdown. This South Carolina game could provide a little bit of the same thing. Again, ignore all of the coaching carousel noise coming from fan bases that their season's over. They have nothing to cheer for. Florida has a game, the cocktail party game against Georgia, and all of them are like, ho home, let's talk about coaches. LSU, same thing. They play Alabama in 2 weeks. and all they can talk about is coaches because their season is over. Your season is not over. Remember that. They remember November. These players have a chance to kind of break out, and we'll see exactly how that goes. Ole Miss is a better team than the 4 teams left on their schedule. Can they lose? Absolutely. We saw that a year ago. Will they lose? I don't think so. I do think this team is amped up. This feels different, just like a podcast that I did earlier in the week on this channel. This year feels different. We talked about the T. Martin stuff and the Peyton Manning stuff, the Tennessee story in the offseason. It's like, is this 97 or was 2024 97 and this one's 98? It's kind of starting to feel that way. It is going to be important for Ole Miss to get the win against South Carolina. 1 point, 40 points, it doesn't matter. Style points no longer matter for Ole Miss. You can win all 4 of these next 4 games by 1 point, and you're going to be hosting a game in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. So 1 point, 40 points, it does not matter. It's going to be imperative on Lane Kiffin to keep us cool. What's going on? Keep that cool. The players to keep their head and to just execute and play good football because this is a really, really good football team. In our final segment, we're giving our official picks for this game and, more importantly, explaining why Ole Miss just feels different this year, honestly. From the way they're winning on both sides of the trenches to the leaderships on both sides of the ball, there's something about this group that stands out. Plus, we'll look at a few player props that might be worth your attention heading into Saturday. All of that and more coming up next. Hey, it's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more each and every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Ole Miss, Trinidad Chambliss delivered in a big way. This was against a defense that prior to this game, the most they gave up passing the ball was 220 yards. Chambliss threw for over 300, had over 50 yards rushing as well, hit big explosive after big explosive pass, and when the pressure was on, he came through. No hesitation, no delay, and if you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. Trinidad Chambliss is on a streak, honestly an elite streak of 250 yards. He's the only SEC quarterback to hit 250 yards passing in every single start. And just like Trinidad Chambliss delivered for the Ole Miss Rebels, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save each and every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period runs through November 18th. And the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or you want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next points or who's going to have the biggest fourth quarter comeback and all of that stuff. Plus, you can even combine those live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at even bigger payouts. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when that first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com today and sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Ole Miss takes on the South Carolina Gamecocks Saturday night at, I think, 6 o'clock Central Time on ESPN. The Rebels are sitting right now. The current line is about the same. It hasn't moved all week. Ole Miss is favored by 12.5 points. Ole Miss has about 80% of the money on them at the moment as well. The over-under is the only thing that has really gone up. It went from 52.5 to 55.5, but Ole Miss is the early betting favorite in this game. I mentioned some props that I was looking for and thinking about. I genuinely think Kewan Lacy has a chance to have a star-turn breakout type game against South Carolina. when you look at what Ahmad Hardy and Missouri was able to do against this defense on the road for South Carolina as well, what happened to South Carolina a week ago where the defense just played out of their mind and had South Carolina in a position to win that game only to lose it at the very end, including a weird play where they just let a player score from, 25 yards out. It was completely weird. That's how South Carolina lost that game. I think Ole Miss is in good shot. I think the prop that I'm looking for in this game is like Kewan Lacy, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think that is where I sit at the moment. But I don't think this game is going to be as close as the line. I think Ole Miss is going to easily cover. I've got Ole Miss winning 31-10 over the South Carolina Gamecocks. It's going to be a relatively one-sided game. They're going to be up for it. All of that, they're going to get off to the good start. The front runner stuff move off into the distance and kind of keep everything at arm's length heading into the game against the Citadel before the last 2 games being very, very high leverage to see what's going on. But I've got Ole Miss winning 31-10 in this game. And if you look at the Week 10 lines, one last look at it, Vandy and Texas, Georgia and Florida, Arkansas, Mississippi State, South Carolina and Ole Miss, Tennessee and Oklahoma, the lines haven't moved all week. They're exactly the same position they were in on Sunday. Kentucky and Auburn, that is the only line that has moved over the course of the week. They went from Auburn minus 9.5 to Auburn minus 11.5. I worry that might be too many points. I don't know if Ashton Daniels is going to start. Are they going to go back to Jackson Arnold? I'm not 100% sure. All I know is last year when they benched Peyton Thorne and started Hank Brown, it was a disaster, and Peyton Thorne ended up coming back. So we'll see exactly what that looks like for the Auburn Tigers. But I'm impressed of where this Ole Miss season can go. I'm very excited about where it is at the moment. Enjoy it. Be safe heading up to Oxford. If you're going, be loud when you get there. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the front door of Ole Miss. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it is totally free. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Chris Gordy and Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy breaks down the best conference in college sports from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hotty toddy, remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.